Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and of course, I am so honored to be joined by Nightly News Hall of Famer Brian Christiana. Brian, welcome back to campus, and welcome back to the Nightly News Podcast.
Well, Paul, I'm very thankful. I just had to take the gold jacket off, and but I'm very excited to be back.
I love, one of the things I do love ever since you've graduated is the support that you still continue to give Central Penn College. In fact, when we're recording this, Brian has been involved with our athletics program, even still to this day. In fact, at the last game at FNB Field, Brian was doing some of the on-field entertainment. And so just in a general sense, and of course, this is something that you're used to doing. You've also worked with the Harrisburg Senators, currently working for the Lancaster Barnstormers. What did it mean to you to have that opportunity to, on the final game at FNB in this monumental season, what did it mean to you to have that involvement with this, with our athletics department?
Oh my goodness, Paul. I mean, I got to be the guy. That's what it like, literally. I got to be the one that welcomes the people, and I get to be the one to tell them good night, thank you. And just being that guy, all eyes on you, Paul. That's always one of the greatest feelings. But I just doing that, being an on-field entertainer for the school, a place that's been near and dear in my heart. It meant $1 million. Felt like $1 million.
I try to talk about this sometimes during the broadcast about how much that it means to me to get to call these games, not only just in general, but at FNB Field.
Yeah.
So Professor Tom Davis and I have had the opportunity this season to work together. Actually, first time calling a game together since 2019.
Incredible.
And it's like we never missed a beat. But to be able to broadcast these games from a stadium that I personally have been to so many times, I actually worked over there for a summer earlier in my career, and seen Steven Strasburg, Bryce Harper, Matt Wieters, some of the biggest prospects in the game, it's difficult to put into words what that means for me, because as I make no secret, if somebody were just to say, you have whatever money you need, what job do you want to do? I would want to be, a baseball commentator.
Yeah.
I even listened to old Terry Byram calling some
yeah.
Senators games on CBS radio, and it's difficult to put into words what it means. And I'm fortunately, you have the words to describe why it's so important to you, but the opportunity that I have with our athletics department, it's just a wonderful thing. And again, I know that we've talked about this before, Brian, but really I have you and several other students to thank for that, because you were the ones that wanted to make that happen. You guys were the ones that did the logistical pieces. And for that, I appreciate all of your efforts. And hopefully you're still able to catch a game every once in a while.
Paul, I think the word you were thinking of, or the words you were thinking was, I made it. Seriously, because once you cracked that mic for the first time, you have made it. That is a dream that so many people wish to have, and guess what? You are doing it. One thing that I've always thought of was, whenever someone tells you, hello, how are you? The one response I've heard recently was, I'm living someone's dream. And I never thought of it that way, but guess what? We live somebody's dream every day. You live someone's dream by being a communications professor. I live it by selling radio right now and being that guy on the field for the Lancaster Barnstormers. We have so many people. Curtis Volker, prime example. That is someone's dream to work in development here at Central Penn. And guess what? It is such an honor to do what you love.
I couldn't agree more. And of course, that's only one very small part of my job here,
Yeah.
but it's one that frankly means, I don't want to say the most, but equally as much as a lot of the other things that I do. So, number one, I want to thank you for your continued involvement. We got to call a couple basketball games this year, which was an absolute blast, getting out there and supporting the Knights. And again, we hope to have you back with our basketball season this year. So definitely something that we will keep. We've not heard the last from Nightly News Hall of Famer Brian Christiana. Well, Brian, I appreciate you stopping down to campus today, and certainly any time that you're in the area, I would love to have you on the show. But I want to talk about some of the things that you've been up to since we had you on last time. Of course, you were a Nightly News Hall of Famer. We had you in the fall on the show that really kind of outlined what you'd been up to since you left Central Penn. But I want to talk about a really important occasion in your career coming up from June 8th to the 12th. You are going to be a presenter and facilitator at the Hugh O'Brien O'Brien Youth Leadership Conference that's taking place at Susquehanna University. Now, this Hugh O'Brien Leadership Conference is specifically for high school sophomores. So let's travel back to in the time machine.
Yeah.
And off air, you were telling me how you got involved with this. So you actually attended this as a high school sophomore.
Yeah, so we're going to go back to what it would have been 2014. Yeah, 2014. And the guidance counselor came into the classroom and was like, Hugh O'Brien is this youth leadership conference where high school students get to learn about leadership qualities and ways to be a future leader for America. And I was like, that is so me. Why not? So I had to write a nice essay telling why, my family background, and so forth. And I got accepted. It was amongst, I think, like 5 or 6 other students. It was one of the best times. I stayed at Shippensburg University, where it was at the time, and I got to meet so many people from across the area. Found out I had a relative that ended up being there the same year, which I think was so incredible. Never even knew I was related to him.
Wow.
So yeah, pretty crazy. But it was such an honor, and I still connect with some of the people that I met. One of the facilitators when I was there went to Syracuse University, obviously the #1 broadcasting school in the country, and I got to learn more from him, and he helped me develop the idea of what I wanted to do.
So tell me, so now you're going to be on the other side. So
Yep.
obviously you're no longer a high school sophomore. You're a college graduate working successfully in their field. Tell me what your role in this Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership Conference is going to be this time around.
So my goal in all reality and my position, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be facilitating. I'm going to be leading the students, giving them advice nonstop, leading them in different activities, whether it's icebreakers. There's just different ways of networking and branding. And my goal is to help them get to their full potential. It's a good thing also because it's like an open space, a safe space for them. So it's a lot of getting stuff off the chest that they might not be comfortable expressing to others. So that is something I'm very fortunate, and it's an honor to have someone talk to you about very personal things. So it really just, it makes me, I feel like I could be on top of the world with it.
When you think back, what role did this play in your development as a student in general?
Oh, my goodness. My goal always was to be the leader of this place. And I would say oh, my goodness, I arrived in April 2017. I would say when I became president, I will say that. When I became president, I think I ran off with it. I'm not trying to be arrogant to anyone.
No, absolutely
but
not.
I was the guy. I will be straight. I was the guy of this place, and I just wanted to be the best person I could be in someone's life. Make an impact on it every day. Make an impact for Central Penn. This place made me, I still say to this day, and I just wanted to give back to the place that gave me the opportunity.
Well, just in a general sense, from my perspective, let's just say this. The nightly news has sorely missed you. Again, we are still a very vibrant group.
You're the prestige club on campus.
And I appreciate that very much. What I would say is I think what I'm missing right now currently is we don't have any people that have a really, really deep desire to get into sports outside. Okay. We've got a couple gentlemen who are on the baseball team. So we have a couple gentlemen who you got to meet who did our producing. And, I'd like to get them to doing some commentary too at some point. The problem is they're the two people who really want to get into sports, and of course they're playing baseball. Yeah. So one of the difficulties that we had during this season was trying to get student reporters out, trying to get student photographers out. Of course, we have the broadcast piece there, but it's not just that. It's, for example, both you and Tyler had written stories, taken photos, and we have had that to a certain point, and there are people who are interested. Also, it's difficult when people have classes and early March, April baseball getting moved around.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, the long story short is that is one place that I can say you absolutely made an impact is from the sports element, not only just in the broadcasting, but also in the photography and doing stories and things like that.
I mean, that was my biggest weakness was taking a picture. I'm not going to lie to you, Paul. I mean, one thing I learned here was you can, an iPhone or an Android is just as, technology we have today is just as good. Or, I mean, a camera is a camera, we'll be honest, but a cell phone does the job now.
Especially newer ones.
Yes, it's incredible. I mean, really portrait mode on an iPhone is crazy.
Yeah. I will say, definitely, in terms of being a professional photographer, you definitely want to have
a camera.
camera.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
But I will say that, especially for what our purposes were, just to have a few pictures that were taken on an iPhone or on an Android, I think can be useful. Well, let's switch topics here really quickly. One of the things that I'd like to announce is that you have accepted recently a new position with iHeartMedia. Now, anybody who's been keeping up with Brian knows Brian's been working with iHeartMedia for several years now, even while he was in school. But you now accepted a full-time position. So talk to us a little bit more about what that full-time position entails, if you're still doing the things that you were doing previously, and what impact that has on your career.
So previously, before I was doing promos and all that different stuff, but now I'm actually going into the selling part. So something that working more in marketing, which I mean, it was a pretty cool idea. I never really got the I got to expose them at an event or a remote. Now I get the back end and hear more about clients, which I love because networking is such an important thing. We were just talking about it off the air. And now I get to build relationships, make friends. That's something that, like, right away in the back of my mind, like, I was constantly thinking on day one, all right, I got to go sell $10,000 in one day. No. You got to make friends. You got to build that relationship.
Absolutely.
And then business will come with that. But the relationship building and making friends is something I absolutely love to do. And I think I do well at it. But I mean, it's something that takes time.
Now, I will say, obviously, this is a wonderful promotion. I think that because of the charisma that you have, because of the willingness that you have to engage people who you don't even know, which is, frankly, I know that sounds kind of cliched, but that's one of the most difficult things for people to do once, they get out of the college environment is, frankly, just to walk up to somebody and introduce yourself and say hello and get that ball rolling, because that's the toughest part of any type of relationship building is getting it started. So do you think, now, let's just say this. When we had you on for the Hall of Fame, obviously one of the things that I can say on your behalf is that one of your long-term goals is that you want to be on the air.
Yeah, I mean, that is still something I want to do. I mean, I still look. I'll be honest. I'm someone who always looks at opportunities. You have to be. If you're someone who has a job, but you're not doing the job that you always wanted to do, you got to keep your eyes open. And that's what I recommend to everyone. And my goal at this point, I want, like you, Paul, like we talked, sports. It's always fun. You're enjoying it. I mean, personally, my goal, I would love to be a full-time PA announcer if it was a real job. I mean, I'm sure it is somewhere, but being a PA announcer would always be my go-to.
So we'll come back to iHeart in a second. Have you had the opportunity to do any PA announcing since we last spoke with you?
Yeah. So I just did it this past weekend. So I mean, I did PA for the Shamokin area Indians. Baseball. And that's not, I'm from Lourdes, which if you're familiar with up that way, anyone, Lourdes is the private school, Shamokin's the public school. And Lourdes, technically, Shamokin doesn't necessarily go for anyone with Lourdes, and I got to be able to do PA for baseball. So it was honestly, it felt like a huge accomplishment just because Lourdes and Shamokin, the relationship's a little iffy, but hey.
Well, and two, you had let me know over the winter that you were also doing some broadcasting in high school basketball. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so before I was full-time with iHeart, I was working with Sunbury Broadcasting. I did some play-by-play for the Selinsgrove Seals men's basketball program, and it was an honor. That was something I never got the opportunity to do. I want to thank Chad Evans for giving me that opportunity from Stone State, and I got the opportunity to do something I really always wanted to do, and I will give him credit. I was one day just sitting on the recliner watching HBO Max or something, and I get a message, hey man, do you want to come do play-by-play for basketball? And I literally got up and told my dad, like, I made it. Like,
I think it's fantastic because now you've seen what that experience that Central Penn is going to open doors for you.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, so even I think for 2 full seasons, 19 and 20, maybe even a little bit on 18, I'm just trying to kind of think back in my mind.
18 was our first year.
Okay,
correct?
so 18. So you've essentially been calling baseball for 4 years now.
Baseball,
And basketball for 3.
Yeah.
Plus now, because of that experience that you've had here, you've been able to parlay that into other broadcast opportunities. Hopefully that can continue. I know that you'd even talked about the potential of calling football. I know
that is a goal.
I know that
always
didn't happen just yet, and that's fine. But what I'm getting at is now you're seeing this stuff pay off.
Yeah.
Because frankly, Chad, you could have been the best person in the world, but if you'd never called a game before, he may have been hesitant to give you that opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
And because you had the opportunity to be very successful doing both basketball and baseball broadcasts, that now gives you that experience that you need to apply for a job like that. So I think that that's great. So not only have you worked with iHeart, you've also got another really cool job, and that is doing the on-field entertainment with the Lancaster Barnstormers.
Oh my goodness, Paul. Yes, it is. One thing I always think about is like I don't like to build a character because I want to be myself out there. There's people that like to build a character. They play, the good guy, getting all dancy, wearing different costumes. That's not me. I'm not going to create like a fake name on the radio type of person. I'm Brian.
Right.
And that's the one thing like a lot of people were surprised about because Lancaster Barnstormers had some pretty big names. I Am Fun was the big one down there for the longest time. And I said, I want to be Brian. I want you guys to know the real me. I don't want to play a character, which an entertainer, hey. But I get to be me. And I feel like when you feel that adrenaline rushing, I'll even bring the wrestling involved because I love it so much. You feel like The Rock. When The Rock is out there and he does his whole finally.
Right.
Like you feel like that. And it's something I absolutely love, just putting smiles on people's faces, enjoying the game, and just remembering their moments.
So one of the things that I most vividly will recall from the last really year of my life is you invited us out for one of the last games last season in 2021. And of course, we had the opportunity. Of course, I got to talk to you, but you were also working. Seeing you, it's like you're just a natural for doing this. And again, I know you've had a wonderful mentor in Bob Hauer.
Yep.
And Bob was on-field entertainment at the Harrisburg Senators, in addition to being a very well-known DJ, really
everywhere.
Nationwide.
Yeah, I was just going to say, he just picked up New York City, so he's everywhere.
Wow, that's incredible. Bob, and I'm sure if you're from this area, you know Bob very well. And, if you've ever been to a Bears game or a Senators game or listened to a multitude of radio stations in the area, you know Bob. But he's been a great mentor to you as well. Of course, your final podcast as a student, we had both Tom Russell and himself
Tom
in
Russell,
here.
great man, seriously.
I still keep up with Tom every once in a while. But I think it's really interesting that you have channeled your love for sports through these different avenues and media in a general sense. Of course, at one point prior to the pandemic, you also worked for the Pennsylvania Cable Network.
Yeah.
So your resume right now is unbelievable, and you've sort of fulfilled that dream in a sense, working in sports. Again, you worked with the Senators. Now you're working with the Barnstormers, two highly respected sports teams in this region. You've also now been calling college games. You've been doing PA for games. You've been doing broadcasts for high school basketball. I mean, you're doing everything that you need to do to make that next step. And Brian, frankly, you give me the opportunity to give a case study of if someone comes in here to Central Penn College, takes advantage over the 3 years of being here, that what really you can accomplish. And I'm not just saying based on our own, connections, but what you can really do if your goal is to work in sports. And we have a lot of people that are interested in doing that.
I tell everyone, all good things happen in life by you saying yes. Seriously, there is like I said earlier, we are living someone's dream. If I say no, guess what? Somebody else is going to take that opportunity and they can take that from me. I get told all the time by my family, Brian, you're nuts.
Why?
Why would you drive from Shamokin, Pennsylvania, all the way to Lancaster for baseball? And I tell them, guess what? Because I am doing someone's dream. I am doing my dream, but also someone else's dream. They can call someone else, and guess what? That person takes my spot.
I couldn't agree more. So tell us a little bit more about what, just in case people aren't aware, when we say you're doing on-field entertainment, what does that actually mean?
So yeah, I am the person that I'll be on the field, usually wearing, last year we wore a green jersey. This year it's going to be a regular Lancaster Barnstormers jersey. I will crack the mic open, and I will have people play games. I am the person who will be the leader in the t-shirt tosses. I will be the one welcoming the fans as soon as they get in the door, and I am the one that tells them, good night, thank you for coming. It's awesome, Paul. Like, having the camera on you, getting to do what you love, and just you get to talk to people.
And you have pretty good access to the ball players as well.
Yeah, my man, Alejandro De Aza, I never thought in a million years that I would actually have a relationship with a former Major League Baseball player. And every game, him and I would get stuck talking for a couple minutes. Hey, how are you? Checking in, say. Another guy, the relief pitcher, and I'm drawing a blank on his name because he's such a great guy also. We would talk fantasy football on the field. He'd talk about different sports and all. Like, I would never think that a major league, like a professional baseball player would talk sports with me.
So one real quick thing I just want to point out is that people in this area might be knowledgeable of the Harrisburg Senators.
Yep.
So the Senators would be the AA affiliate of the Nationals.
Yep.
Now, what that means is typically that's a higher level of the minor leagues. If you're at AA, you're very, very close to breaking through. Of course, there is AAA, but sometimes people are called up.
Geography helps the Senators.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So they are affiliated. So typically the type of player you're going to see in Harrisburg, not always, but typically, are going to be up-and-coming prospects. Brian, working with the Lancaster Barnstormers, are independent ball.
Yes.
And so what that means is that they don't necessarily have an affiliation, and that honestly, and in a lot of cases, a lot of the folks playing with these are people with significant track records, but maybe they're a little bit older.
A little past their prime.
Yes, maybe a little past their prime. But I would argue that going to an independent ball is, honestly, you have a much better chance of seeing recognizable stars.
Oh, yeah.
Unless, of course, people are on, rehab assignments or things like that. So, but okay. So there's a couple of things that I just want to throw out there. First of all, Brian will be working the on-field entertainment as the Barnstormers in Lancaster take on York on May 28th, and as the Barnstormers in Lancaster take on the Maryland Blue Crabs on June 4th. So those are two games. If you're looking to make the trek down to Lancaster, or even if you're from our Lancaster campus, please grab tickets for May 28th or June 4th and go out and support Brian and his quest for sports domination.
Yeah, well, yeah. My goal always was to be, Bob always said one of his goals was to be the Ryan Seacrest of Central Pennsylvania. My goal is to be the Joe Buck of Central PA.
Okay, I like it. Well, Brian, there's a few things I want to say before we close. First of all, thank you so much for being a part of our final game at FMB Field on April 22nd. It was a wonderful night, and you did such a fantastic job. I wish you all of the luck in the world at the Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership Conference from June 8th to 12th. We'll have to talk to you about that next time you're around. Yes. Of course, best of luck at iHeart. If you want to put out that email, if anybody's interested in talking to you about some potential ad spots, if you want to throw your email out there.
Yeah, Brian, Christiana at iHeartMedia.com. I actually am going to be putting some business cards out in the ATEC lobby, so then I'm easy to contact. I'm not going to try to put a sales pitch in front of you right now, but any way I can help you succeed your goals, let me let me help you out.
I appreciate that, and I'll put your email along with this as well. And then, of course, check Brian out doing on-field entertainment for the Lancaster Barnstormers on May 28th and June 4th are 2 dates coming up. Brian, as always, it's such a pleasure to chat with you, and I'm glad that you're doing so well in just a couple of years out of Central Penn.
Paul, I'm going to bring it back home. Any way I can bring Central Penn involved, I will. I love this place. This place made me. So I'm very thankful for all it's done, and thank you to everyone.
Absolutely. All right, well, for Nightly News Hall of Famer Brian Christiana, this is Professor Paul Miller, and I will see you again next time on the Nightly News Podcast.
Hi, this is Steve Hassinger, Career Services Director. Thank you for listening to the Nightly News Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Miller, and I am here with one of my favorite people on this campus, the Library Director, Diane Porterfield. Diane, welcome back to the podcast.
Hello. It's been a while.
I was going to say, it's very interesting because Diane said when she came in today, she was like, I was halfway to the Boyer house when I realized that you guys aren't down there anymore. I said, gosh, we haven't been down there for a while. So that kind of shows how long it's been since you've been on the show. I think that's partially my fault. I need to get you on the show more often and to talk about the wonderful things that you're doing in the library. But we appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much for spending your time with the Nightly News Podcast.
Sure, it's great to be here.
So what we're going to be talking about today is we are going to be previewing the upcoming Research Exhibition Summit. That's going to be on June 2nd from 3 to 5 p.m. in the Conference Center. And we're really going to be focusing on that, but also what are some of the wonderful things that you do in the library. Also being joined by Nightly News reporter Sarah Whitmire. Sarah, welcome back to the show.
Hello.
And Sarah is here because, among other things that Sarah does, and among other many things that Sarah does to keep busy, she also is a student worker in the library, so she might be able to provide some assistance in terms of some other services that are offered in the library. So, Sarah, thank you for joining us today.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Well, let's start at the beginning. The research exhibition is something that's been going on for quite some time. I know that in years past, the Nightly News has had, we've gotten involved with this. Didn't get involved with it quite this year, but we have had some amazing opportunities in the past to come together as a group. And so I just want to talk a little bit more about maybe some history of the research exhibition, where it came from, and how it's sort of evolved over the years. So let's start there. Tell us a little bit more about the history of the research exhibition.
So our first one was in 2016. This is our 7th, so I'm impressed that we've been able to keep it going. It started, I think it was something that we had read about in different library journals that other institutions were doing it, and we kind of had to think about how to tweak it for Central Penn. At that time, there was a push to emphasize research and research skills and the scholarly process at Central Penn. So we thought, well, maybe this is a good time. We can really focus in on what our students are doing, give them an opportunity to present themselves in a different manner than just like writing a final paper, for instance. So, and this adds in the visual too. So it's how to present your information a little bit differently than you would normally.
I think what's really interesting about the research exhibition personally is that, to your point, I think a lot of times, and this is just in higher education in general, I'm not saying certainly anyone here at Central Penn, I think a lot of times we are very, very focused on the written element, which is very important, and which employers want to see good writing. But writing and communicating yourself in writing isn't always the best way to present material. I think visually is important as well. Exactly. And also because you're limited by space in terms of the display that you have, you also have to be very concise as well, which also is a skill. Brevity is a skill. So obviously, this is something that's been going on for 7 years, which is incredible that it's been going on that long. But something we absolutely have to ask here is, what impact did COVID have on the history of the research exhibition?
So that year we went completely virtual, and I think a lot of people were just fried. They didn't know what to do. So we didn't get that many participants that year, but we did do it virtually. We did record those sessions. I believe I have them on our LibGuide. I have to look and see that, because we did make them available later on. We tried to capture that same interactivity that you would get in the live event with talking back and forth. So we did have somebody come in and judge and ask questions, and they responded to them. So it did still happen, but it was very, very different, and I'm not sure how much people really wanted to take on an additional oh yeah, I'll sit at my computer more and watch these videos. But
I'm glad you brought that up. So if nothing else, it was a testament of your dedication and stick-to-itiveness to follow through with this, especially because our first term was the spring term, in which that's when you do the research exhibition typically. And so we're online. Of course, we did miss the last, I believe, week of winter term, and then all of spring was online.
Right.
And so it was such a massive shift for everybody in the first place. So it was difficult. And then to do it in a way that you'd never done it before, because these have always been in person. You've had online options.
Yes.
But mainly, in the majority of people, are in person. So when you think about that, I mean, it's a testament to your stick-to-itiveness to have even pulled it off in 2020. But what about 2021? Tell us a little bit more about how things went last year.
So 2021, we're still dealing with COVID. So, so 2021, we were going to do all online again. But the people that participated, there's a few classes that routinely make it part of the class, a requirement of the class. They basically came to me and said, we really want to do it in person. Can we please do it in person again? We'll social distance, we'll spread out, we'll do whatever we can. So we did it last year. We did it in classrooms last year. It did not end up being as COVID safe as I wanted, but people still came out. We still had people registered, and it was still a great event. It was just consolidated. It wasn't as much of an event. We didn't advertise it as much. We didn't advertise it so much for people to come and see it if you weren't already involved. We didn't have food. We did end up giving out prizes still. We usually give out prizes every year, so we did end up doing that again. The judging teams were much smaller. We only had individual judges go around. Usually there's a team. So we made adjustments, and we did it anyway in person. And I think people still got a lot out of it.
I think that it's, again, a testament to you and not only you, but all of the library staff who helps put this on, that you were able to not only try to do this safely, but do it so it was still effective and useful and valuable to the people who were involved.
I think it's valuable to the people that attend, too. So even in 2020, one of the winners was the research they had done was on masking, comparing the different types of masks. And it was because she was working in healthcare. She was wearing the different types of masks, having to wear them all the time. So which one were the more effective and which one were the more comfortable to have to wear the whole day? So I thought that was great. We took they were kind of living what Central Penn does of taking, applying what you learn here into your work life. And then last year, one of our top winners in 2021, it was somebody else debunking COVID myths, which I just wanted to photograph his poster and send it to everybody in his spiel.
So as a student, I have to know, what is the best benefit from participating in this event?
I think the best thing is that you really get to polish and practice your presentation skills. So usually by the end of your college career, you should probably get really good at cranking out papers, but this gives you the opportunity to take that information, put it in a different form, use a little bit more creativity. You can focus on visual more than, I don't want to say more than content, but as much as content. And also your speaking skills, which I need to practice on. All of the presenters give a short 2-minute spiel as people come around, and then they answer questions based on what they've just presented. So it really gives them an opportunity to display what they've learned.
Well, and I think, too, so one of the things I talk about in my classes all the time is how the written and oral communication skills that you develop in college are skills that every employer wants. I don't care what you're in. Obviously, in communications, you need it, but if you're in business, you need it. If you're in legal studies, you need it. If you're in the healthcare industry, you need to be able to have good oral communication skills. So I think that is unbelievably a valid discussion there about some of the benefits of this. Of course, there are others. This is something that you could put on a resume, or if you have an award, if you would win or finish in the top, let's say 4 or 5, you could put that on a resume, and that would be something that you can keep on a resume for a long period of time. You never know, Diane, it might be something that an employer asks you about in the questions. Hey, I see that you won an award at this research exhibition. Tell me a little bit more about what you did. I think all of those things are valuable, and sometimes they're some of the things that students don't necessarily think about when it comes to doing this. Because to your point, I think a lot of times when it comes to having conversations with students about the benefits of doing something like this, often they simply just look at time.
Right.
Like, okay, this is going to take me X amount of time. Is that time outlaid going to benefit me in one way or another? What they don't think is, what is sort of the long-term pieces of this?
Right.
Again, if you win, or even if you just want to put that you entered, and maybe a picture of your display or some type of recording of the presentation that you might give along with that. That's sort of a multimedia piece that a lot of employers are looking for, especially in our area where we're doing a portfolio. This might be something you put in your portfolio, and that can really help develop that portfolio while you're in college. So I think that's another important piece.
Yes, very.
Well, let's focus on this year. Again, June 2nd from 3 to 5 p.m. in the Conference Center. So let's start with how people can get involved. Now, we already talked about the fact that we've missed the registration deadline. So if you're interested, hold that thought till next year. We'll be doing it again next spring. But if I'm not mistaken, you could use some help, is judging. So if somebody might be interested in judging, what would that look like, and how might they get involved?
Yeah, all they need to do is contact me if they're interested in judging. Basically, we assign you to a team, and Usually it's teams of 2 or 3. They go around and view. Right now we're looking at 8 posters. Hopefully if we get a few more, it'll be less. But there's a scoring rubric that we provide. So you just go in and go to the posters that you've been assigned, listen to their presentation, ask questions based on whatever you've heard, and then score the presentations. And it is a way to get out and see what students are doing in the different classes, ready to interact with them. The students get a lot out of it. And I think that the faculty and staff that have participated in the past have enjoyed it. They've gotten a lot out of it. They enjoy being there. It is a fun event. It sounds a little stressful, and it's stressful, I'm sure, for students. But in the end, when the judging's done and you can just kind of walk around and talk to people and hang out and socialize, they get a lot of fun.
I think, and this is one of the first years that I will actually be able to be a judge. Typically, in the past, it would have been a conflict of interest for me to be because the club entered something here, and of course, this is something that we hope to do next year as well. But one of the most interesting things for me is I always love doing stuff like this. I've gotten involved in doing some judging in FBLA. When they were not only here on campus, but I have gone the last 4 years, I believe, including a virtual year in 2020, to the state competition in Hershey. And it's something that, not only just this, but just judging in general, it's so inspiring.
Yeah.
And what I mean is, like, when I go to FBLA, the students who are there are freshmen through seniors in high school. And when you see some of the things, like I've overseen a community service project, for example. Some of these wonderful high school students have raised tens of thousands of dollars for local organizations based on the initiatives they were doing. I mean, you want to talk about inspiring. It is truly fantastic to see that. Here, to your point, Diane, I don't get to see much outside of my class. We might, for the nightly news, go to cover the mock trial, or we might, cover what the business club is doing. But for the most part, we don't get to see tangible assignments, projects, things like that other folks are doing in other areas. To me, I think that's what's so special, is that I get to go not only meet or in some cases get to know these folks further, but I also get to understand a lot of what their passion is because, and maybe fill in the blanks here, a lot of these students are doing things that inside of their majors are super interesting to them. In fact, I don't believe most of the time they're assigned a topic. It's develop your own topic.
Right.
So you really get that passion from them because it's something they care about.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
I think that it's really interesting being able to take a huge project like these students have been able to do and make it their own.
Right.
In putting it, like he was saying, in a resume, portfolio, and being able to put it out there and go just beyond the college level. I
really, really hope, first of all, if you're a student, come down. There's going to be snacks, light refreshments. So it's going to be, you can fuel up for the afternoon with some coffee or some other light fare. So come down, support your classmates, first of all. If you're a faculty staff member and you're interested in judging, Diane, you're still looking for a few more judges?
Yes.
So you can reach out to Diane Porterfield at centralpenn.edu and let her know that you would be interested in coming down to the research exhibition as a judge. Yes. I'm sure the sooner that you reach out to her, the better in terms of her own planning. But I'm pretty sure that even right up to the event, that if you would be interested, that yes, she could figure out a way for you to be involved. So let's do everything we can to come out on June 2nd to the Conference Center from 3 to 5 p.m. to keep an eye on what our wonderful students here are doing.
And you get a vote, too. Visitors also get a vote. There's always a favorite poster that's awarded by the crowd that shows up. So.
One of the things I look back, and interestingly enough, one of our cover stories, I just turned around and looked at the display of publications we have. One of our cover stories actually came from the last research exhibition we were a part of, which I believe was 2019. And what we did that year was we looked at recycling. So this was one of the most unique experiences because what we did was we created a survey, and our goal was to have a 100% response rate. We didn't quite get to 100%, but we got to like 80% of people surveyed. And actually what happened was we realized that first of all, coming into this, the suites were still relatively new, and there wasn't recycling. Now, there was a recycling dumpster outside, but there was nothing inside the unit, a small recycling bin. After we did that primary research and we got the information about what the survey results were, we actually were able and supported the activities department, providing each suite with their own small recycling bin. So in some small way, we like to believe that we're partially responsible for the influx of
Not
recycling.
partially.
So again, you're just seeing another example of what can come out of this particular situation. We also did one in the past on the social media echo chamber, which I remember was an excellent experience. Even before that, we talked, when it was a little bit more themed, we talked about how nonprofit organizations use social media. So, we're always coming at it from the Nightly News from our own perspective, and really able to in some more than others, make a change here on campus.
Didn't you do one on podcasting? Wasn't that your first one?
Yes, podcast. Because if I'm not mistaken, the theme was diversity, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe the very first one that we did highlighted minority podcasters at the time. So I do recall that one as well. Excellent poll. I mean, that was like 2016, Diane.
Right. That was the very first one you all participated in.
Congratulations. Well, as a last question, I can bring you back in here. As a last question, obviously, we understand that the library is a home to our leadership room where students can conference, a computer lab, and the ability to print. Of course, there's these things called books. Not sure how many of you have heard of books, but they do still exist and they are still used, and you have quite a fine collection of that. That's on the surface. Tell us about some of the things that you do in the library.
So the less obvious is the online resources. We talk about them a lot. But yeah, I think a lot of times people think the library, they still think of the books. And we love the books. The books are there. We love the books. Come check out the books. But we do curate our collection. We don't just randomly go out and get whatever comes to us. We do curate based on what programs we offer here. So we have plenty of materials that support you in whatever class you're taking. If you have questions about that, please come to us. That's probably our number one function, is to be there for our students, to answer their questions and support them as they're going through their classes, as they're going through their programs. So use us. That's what we're there for. So.
And Sarah, with you working there, tell me about some of the things that you help students with.
I get to help students with books that we have on reserve. So certain textbooks, we can only give them out in the library for a couple of hours at a time. So I help explain that, and I help them make their copies and kind of help with formatting if they ever have any questions that I can answer. It's just a real good experience getting to meet students that way.
Yeah. I'm really glad that you brought up the formatting, because obviously I advocate for you in every single class and advocate for students to come down to the library. But the biggest thing that I say all the time is in terms of APA style. So one of the biggest issues that I see is not only just basic formatting, but also references page formatting, in-text citations. Frankly, they're very difficult to learn and master. And so instead of taking points off consistently, I often refer those students to come and speak with you, and I always refer to you as the APA expert.
So we try. So APA is complicated, and I can't say that I know it back in.
I don't know that anyone does.
Yeah, it's fiddly. So we refer people a lot to our guide. There's a guides.centralpenn.edu. There is an APA guide. There's a formatted document on there that you can download and use, so that at least you start with the correct format. As for citation, check with us. I mean, there's examples on there, but if you're having trouble, just let us know and we'll guide you in the right direction.
And I think sometimes people just like that human touch and human connection too.
Yeah.
So
just check what I've done. We get questions like that, and that's fine too.
Well, and Sarah, how has your experience at the library been thus far?
I've really enjoyed it, and a lot of it is because I'm getting to meet new students and help in my own way with their education. So it's really interesting, and I enjoy it a lot.
Fantastic. Well, Diane, of course, I will be there. and supporting you for the research exhibition on June 2nd at 3 to 5 p.m. in the Conference Center. And we invite all of you to, if any of you faculty and staff out there are looking for a way to give back, please consider emailing Diane Porterfield at centralpenn.edu as far as being a judge. And any students out there that are interested in this, look us up again next spring for your opportunity to be a part of this. And I can promise you next year, the Nightly News will be back a part of it. The whole COVID situation kind of threw a monkey wrench in our plans. And this year, we're actually working on a couple of different projects that made it so we weren't able to participate this year. But I promise you, I have my word on the Nightly News podcast that we will absolutely be back in 2023.
That's great. Yes.
Well, Diane, thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us. It's always a pleasure. And now you know where the podcast studio is.
Well, thank you very much. It was fun being here.
And Sarah, it's always my pleasure. Thank you for not only being busy, but also being such an integral part of what we're doing with the Nightly News.
Thank you for having me.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Nightly News Podcast. For Nightly News reporter Sarah Whitmire and for the Library Director Diane Porterfield, this is Professor Paul Miller, and we'll see you again next time on the Nightly News Podcast.